How's it going, y'all? I just got back from my week in Los Angeles, the City of Angels, a couple days ago. And frankly put, I had a fantastic time on my trip. It was a lot of fun to explore LA, to drink a little bit of alcohol while doing so, and to just check out some scenic spots that I have seen online just so much, but never been to, as this trip to LA that I just got back from was my first ever trip to LA and to the west coast of the United States in general. Now that I'm back in my home state where I live, I kind of want to give you guys a summary of my thoughts on LA after having spent a week there, and I just want to, in general, give you guys my opinion on LA. Before I arrived, I had a lot of preconceptions about what LA was going to be like, from both people I'd spoken to and from the media, the news. And I found some of them to be true and some of them to be false, and I want to talk about all of that sort of stuff during this video today. I think I want to start off by covering some basic points about LA that I personally experienced. Then after that, I want to go over some more specific points. Let's go ahead and start off with the basics, though. So really the main basic point that I have to say during this video today is just that LA was different. Not only different than where I come from, but different than I expected in general. Prior to visiting, I'd only ever heard about LA through other people and through the news, as mentioned, and so my expectations were set at a certain level, with some being good and some being bad. But as said, LA was just different, and I found myself having a great time, as mentioned. As a place to visit, I really do think the metro area of LA is fantastic. There's so many things to do, and while I did everything I'd set out to do during the week I was there, if I ended up being there for even longer than I was, it would have been no issue at all to find more things to do. Absolutely, my trip to Los Angeles was worth it, and it was a great time, but I can never see myself moving there, and that brings me to my first specific point. Prices. Over the years, I've heard a lot of stories about the cost of living in LA, and it was certainly more expensive than where I come from, no question in my mind. However, it wasn't as much as expected. Maybe it was because of the area I stayed in, or maybe it was due to the fact that I didn't eat out much, but I found LA to have roughly an additional 25% surcharge on everything over normal. That's more, don't get me wrong, and it undoubtedly adds up over time, but as someone who is only there for a week, it was manageable. Of course, this was helped by me not renting a car, having been taking public transit the entire time, but yeah, while LA is certainly expensive, it wasn't double the price of my local area, unlike some might have wanted me to believe. Of course, though, the main factor in price during the entirety of my trip was the accommodations, but even that wasn't so bad, as I found an affordable place. But it comes as no understatement that rent in LA truly is ridiculous. It really is insane. Rent in LA is just absolutely crazy, I gotta be honest with y'all, and mainly due to rent prices in LA and just the general raised cost of living in LA in general, that 25% surcharge that I mentioned. There is no way I could live in LA because, simply put, I couldn't afford to live in LA. So yeah, here's my take. Yes, LA is expensive, but when visiting, you don't have to spend a lot of money, just more for the same you'd get elsewhere. Definitely though, when living there with rent prices and other factors, it would be way too expensive, especially for me, and that is, as mentioned, a large factor as to why I could never live in LA. One amusing point though, depending on the variety and store, liquor could at times actually be cheaper than my local area. For example, I saw a bottle of Buffalo Trace bourbon in LA for $26, whereas in my local area, the same bottle would have been over $30. Definitely not a rule of thumb that alcohol is less expensive in LA than in my local area, but it was nice to see at times. Now, I didn't stay in a particularly crazy nice or crazy bad area by any means, more so somewhere in the middle on the nicer side, so take what I say with a grain of salt here. But one talking point I've seen perpetrated by the media time and time again is the crime and homeless situation in LA. To be honest, I didn't see much. Of course, I saw steering wheel locks on old cars with no security systems, and sure, there were homeless individuals around, some by choice and others not, but one thing I never experienced was being hassled for money ever. That never happened the entire time I was in LA, and I never saw a tent-lined sidewalk with needles all over the ground like you might see some news outlets saying at times. Now, I've heard that the local government has been cleaning up as of late. Apparently, when I was visiting, it was the perfect time as it was election season. However, while I might have been there at the right time, nonetheless, my experience was still that the media has been overblowing many of the negative aspects of LA to some degree. On a similar point to the last, one thing that is absolutely not overblown is LA's RV culture. There are a lot of RVs parked on the side of the road in LA. Some of them are honestly pretty nice. I walked by one, and it was an Airstream, and somebody was living out of it, and they had their cat on the side of the road with a leash strapped to the Airstream door, and I was like, man, that is a sweet camper, I gotta admit. And even though it's an Airstream, one of the most expensive campers you can buy, it might still be cheaper than LA rent if I had to hazard a guess. But yes, one thing that is absolutely not overblown is LA's RV culture. I can say that with certainty. So an item I'd heard both a lot of negative and positive things about was Los Angeles's public transit. Frankly put, before visiting LA, what I'd heard was 50-50. My experience, though, was that it's not a bad system, but is flawed and does need work if they want more people to utilize it on a routine basis. For example, I did experience delays multiple times, once with trains and quite a bit with buses. Of course, the latter is kinda hard to mitigate with LA traffic, but the train delay was over 20 minutes, which wasn't pleasant to experience when standing on a train platform with a distinct lack of shade, and it could have been very bad if I was a commuter, as I might have been late for work just simply because the train was delayed. While I've just now been quite critical about LA's public transit, I do personally have a more positive opinion of the system than not, and I do personally think it's a lot better than many would have you believe. I felt relatively safe on it, no more unsafe than my local transit system, and while it certainly isn't quick and certainly isn't Japan, it did consistently get me from point A to B within a predictable time frame. Definitely, though, LA needs to work more on its train lines and should decentralize their hub-and-spoke network with some belt lines around the inner and outer metro areas. The reliance on buses also isn't great when traffic is as bad as it is, and that brings me on to my next point: traffic. Yeah, honestly, there's really not much to say here. Los Angeles traffic is really just as bad as everybody says it is. It's horrible. It'll be like 2 p.m. in the afternoon and the highway is backed up for no apparent reason on a Tuesday. It is, not great. Los Angeles traffic is really bad, I gotta admit, y'all. And it is just as bad as you guys have heard before. But one of the benefits of Los Angeles traffic is that while stuck in traffic, you might see some cool cars, and that brings me to my next point: Los Angeles's car culture. Yes, old cars are just as prevalent in LA as I thought they were gonna be, and the culture surrounding them is pretty cool. Lots of old diesel Mercedes, Toyota, Chevys, and the like, along with a mix of everything else, was what I experienced, and it was really nice to see and take photos of. What I didn't end up seeing, though, were the crazy expensive cars that you hear people talk about LA having just so much. During my week there, I saw only a handful of truly quote-unquote expensive cars in my personal opinion, and even they weren't anything crazy compared to what I've heard about LA having before. Maybe I just visited the wrong areas, though. I think that's probably what it was, but that was my experience nonetheless. Culture-wise, LA is really interesting and was definitely different, that is for sure. Not stereotypical in my opinion, but the culture and vibe of LA was certainly different and more, what's the right way of putting this? More spread out than I suppose I expected. I think the most shocking factor of my trip in regards to this was the mix of so many different cultures so close together, yet so far apart at the same time. You'll walk right from the Hollywood Strip into a lowrider meetup, and that's not a far reach, as that's exactly what I did, but at the same time, those two cultures are completely different cultures. Even though they're so close to each other, they are still kind of far away. That's really interesting, and that's definitely something that was just different than I expected, I gotta admit. So one of my favorite things about LA, I gotta be honest with y'all, is the weather. It felt fantastic just like all the time, and that is not an understatement. Due to the pleasant weather, it was really easy to visit everywhere I wanted to go without concern of rain and the like. However, it was significantly colder than I expected, both at night and on the beaches. This was, I will acknowledge, a research issue though, and I should have definitely brought a pair of pants and expected that to be the case. But I just didn't think about LA being a desert with like no humidity, and I forgot that in less humid environments, the weather feels colder, even when it actually isn't colder, it's just less humid. I'm just not used to desert environments because I am from a more humid place than not, and so I definitely got caught by surprise. That's my bad. Overall, though, the weather in LA is awesome, and I really, really, really like it. So the weather being a little bit colder, a little bit more chilly on the beaches and at night in LA was definitely unexpected, but what was more unexpected was the distinct lack of weed smell and the distinct lack of dispensaries I saw while I was in LA. With the legalization status of herb in California, I was honestly expecting to see a dispensary on like every single street corner, but that was not at all the case. And if anything, there were significantly more liquor stores in LA than there were dispensaries, because I only saw like 5 dispensaries the entire time I was there. 5 obvious dispensaries at least. I'm sure I passed by a bunch of them that were not obvious, but yeah, I only actually noticed 5 dispensaries compared to like over 20 liquor stores. For me though, I'm pretty happy that there's a lot of liquor stores in LA because I love my liquor, but it was still very surprising to see a lack of dispensaries in LA with the legalization status of herb over there and everything like that kind of thing, and it was very surprising the lack of weed smell as well, I will acknowledge. All in all, I gotta admit, I had a great time in LA, and found many of the area's issues and general stereotypes to be overblown to some degree, with others not being overblown at all. Frankly put, I had an amazing time in LA, and while I'm not sure that my wallet wants to pay for another Airbnb over there, I certainly would not mind visiting again in the future. I had an amazing time. After all, why wouldn't I want to go back? But I can say for sure that I will not be moving there. It's just too dang expensive, and LA is just not the place for me personally speaking. I just cannot see myself ever living in LA, even though I absolutely do want to visit again eventually. But yeah, I think that's just about all I had to say for this video today. Overall, what do you guys think about LA if you guys have visited before? I know I enjoyed myself, but what about y'all? Did you guys have a similar experience to what I experienced in LA? And if you guys are from LA, is what I said accurate? Let me know in the comments below, but do please remember to take this video with a massive grain of salt. I am just a guy on the internet talking about my opinion on LA, not trying to come across as dissing LA or anything like that by any means. I'm just stating the facts as they are, to me at least. Thank you so much for watching this video today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have, make sure to check out my new poetry book, Poems to Read While Smoking Cigarettes, available now on Amazon for $14.99. It's a great read. Highly recommend y'all check it out. And of course, also make sure to like and subscribe, and check out everything else in the description down below. Appreciate y'all watching today's video. Until the next one, stay safe in peace and have a great one.